All right, NAI football fans, this is Corey Thorpe back with another edition of the NAIF Ball live show powered by AdCraft, the best in the business since 1974. For your business, for your team, whatever it is, they can get it done. Custom apparel, merch, uniform, they've got it all. We are, on the cusp of a great week of flag football with a tournament this weekend that has the potential of shaking up our top six. I'm excited, Angelo. How about you?
Brother, we even talked about this last week, and I think it's kind of like a two-part show that kind of builds up to Reinhardt's tournament. And just to reiterate again, you got a new team, well, fairly new team in a matter of speaking, but this is truly their first hosting opportunity where it's a first mark to see how Reinhardt holds up in flag football when it comes to the Waleska, Georgia area. You're going to have multiple teams coming in there, top talent from the country, as well as even some new first-timer programs that want to get a feel for the entire competition. That's what you get when you're hosting a big tournament like this if you're Reinhardt. So, again, just to echo what you're saying, we're excited about this. Can't wait to see what the games are going to be like. And, starting Friday, we're going to be rocking and rolling.
How hard is it from a school perspective? Reinhardt's running two fields. I mean, how like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs is your is their poor SID staff going to be?
Well, I mean, Mike the Vader knows what he's doing. I mean, he's a guy that's been in the business, and you know that this is going to be something on their staff that they've been preparing for at least a couple weeks now. You're just wrapping up with crossover season now, but hopefully there's been communication with head coach Tony Fuller and the Vader, just knowing that they want to make sure that they're running this tournament successfully. And just when it comes to things like tape, links, and just any other information that the coaches need, as well as the other SIDs for those that are the avid flag football fans, including us, ways to try to watch the game instead of it just being like a live report and everybody only finds out like on Monday when all the games conclude. So, there's going to be a lot of work on Reinhardt's hands, but I know that they'll get the job done.
All right, well, let's take a look at what we got last week. We got Kansas Wesleyan with a 19-0 win over Southwestern. A nice win there for K-Dub. Battle of the Purple KCAC squads there. Almost dogs versus cats there a little bit here.
Yeah, the Coyotes certainly didn't get jinxed that time. They still took care of business.
They absolutely did not. Chihiro Iwata went 22 for 44 for a $181, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Jasmine Whitfield hauled in 7 balls for 55 or 40. No, yeah, I read that right the first time. Couldn't believe it. 54 yards and a touchdown. And then Layla Cassian, 3 pulls and 1.5 pulls for loss. For Southwestern, Miranda Dooley did not have a great day. 7 for 21 for 32 yards. On the ground, though, was a little more successful. 10 attempts for 53 yards. But wide receiver cornerback Viviana Solis got it done on both sides of the ball. 2 receptions, 20 yards, and 5 pulls and a pick, but not quite enough for Southwestern.
Yeah, go ahead. I thought you were getting ready to say something with that.
Yeah, so on the other game then, unfortunately, Southwestern goes 0-2 in kind of the little bit of a prove-it season or prove-it games for them. Baker comes out on top. A better game for Dooley here, except for the 3 picks, but goes 13 of 25 for only 63 yards. Solis, again, with 3 receptions for 24 yards and 6 pulls and a pass breakup. She's putting in good work, but again, just wasn't enough. Sanij Walker, 18 of 27 for 144 and a touchdown. Kayla Harrison, 6 receptions, 48 yards, and 1 rushing attempt that went for 64 yards and a score. Faith Phillips brings it up on the defensive end with 5 pulls and a pick. Angelo, talk to me about that little mini, almost a tournament there with, you've had Baker and Kansas Wesleyan, I believe, already play this year. And then Southwestern getting their first taste of bigger action there. Or wait, no, Baker is undefeated. Never mind, it's Southwestern that's played someone else. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Southwestern, they have a couple losses now in terms of their playing realm of things, but to kind of look at this kind of thing. This is something that happens with flag football scheduling sometimes, more of a convenience factor than it is, just about a game strategy piece. This is something we saw with the Sun Conference and what they've been doing normally. We're starting to see more of this in the KCAC realm of things, and it was just a convenience factor in this case for the squads. And that's something where, again, they say sometimes when you play bad the first game, there's an opportunity to play better in the second game. Sometimes the way you play could be an all-day factor. It ultimately depends on the style of teams. But for Southwestern's case, again, you had some really good experience this weekend, despite both of those losses. And like we talked about last week, Corey, we knew that with the Baker and Southwestern matchup, it was going to be a test for both teams to see where they gauged in terms of the overall season piece. So, obviously in this case, Baker won the first matchup, and Baker so far, outside of the Ottawa loss, has been rolling along well. Despite what anybody thinks about the quality of opponents, the key thing as a first-year opponent, you got to find ways to win, and you got to build that confidence with your said team. And for Sanijah Walker, just doing what she can do at that quarterback position has been absolutely instrumental for this piece. More of a leader to step up. And then, of course, Kayla as well, joining in on that support piece. And that's where you want to ultimately build. You want to find a good group of women, just a couple of them, 2, 3, possibly even 4, that can really gauge that leadership of the team and can get the ball rolling. And for Baker, that's probably one of the reasons why I'm so high on them, from a bias standpoint, is because, ever since that first game against St. Mary, you could tell that there was something building with this team. And as the season continues to go on as a first-year program, yes, they're going to have some growing pains. Yes, there's going to be some good victories ahead. But at the same time, you want to build that nucleus of teams, and you want to make sure that they're coming together and, doing work and taking care of business. But to kind of circle it back around, from that style of play, sometimes it benefits a team to play 2 games. But in the Southwestern's case, back-to-back games, just, again, quality opponents, yes. But at the same time, you would think that a new game would have transitioned well for them. And, I mean, they did start off well. They did get an opening touchdown before Baker scored 19 unanswered. So, it's a matter of the ebb and flow of games. And in flag football, sometimes the momentum you carry from the first game can translate over into the second game, unless if you have a break in between, it's an opportunity to regroup. But at the end of the day, for Southwestern, a good test for them, despite it costing them a couple of losses. I think they're going to be ready to go moving forward.
Let's take a look how that impacts our top 25. We had our top 6. We did have a couple of games in that, but it is, again, the same as it was last week. I'm going to, call my intern out. He's putting in good work over there with the Portland Pickles. Didn't quite get his vote in, so don't know that it would have changed it all that much. Ottawa still number 1. Kaiser still number 2. Warner creeping up there. The gap between Kaiser and Warner is very small. The gap between Thomas and Kansas Wesleyan is actually quite small as well. And I definitely think we could be seeing a shakeup in our top 6 come this weekend. We're going to step aside real quick and hear a word from our friends at AdCraft.
So you want to create and sell custom merch for your team or business. That's exciting, but where do you begin? How much inventory should you order? How do you distribute orders? AdCraft has your answers. Streamline the way you offer custom merch by utilizing our risk-free web store service. We ship directly to each customer, and we have the fastest turnaround in the game.
Thanks to our friends at AdCraft for sponsoring us and making that work well there. So, we teased it a little bit, but our what to watch for is highly impactful on our rankings next week. I mean, this is going to be 2 big full days. This is almost like Thanksgiving to May's Christmas of flag football. We've got games on games on games on games. Even the ones that we're not highlighting, we're getting some really good NAIA games in St. Thomas, Campbellsville, Milligan Point, Thomas Life, Reinhardt Weber, Kaiser Milligan, St. Thomas Milligan, Weber Point, Life Campbellsville, Reinhardt Point. We've got a lot of good games going on that aren't these three, but these three are the ones that you're going to want to get the popcorn, get in front of the couch, and sit and watch because they're going to be absolute wars. The first one, Friday, March the 15th at 2:15 p.m., the Businessman's Special, Ottawa versus St. Thomas. Can the Braves find a way to negate that South Florida speed?
I'm going to have to double check just to make sure, but I'm 90% positive, Corey, that this is only their second overall meeting in club history. Because we haven't seen too much of the Ottawa-St. Thomas matchups. I think the last time they played them was a couple years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. And I don't think it was in the playoffs either. I think it was that that big tournament down in South Florida where Thomas actually beat Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken. Remember that a couple years back?
Well, Thomas beat Ottawa. That was Weber International putting something together, I think, between them and it was Weber, Warner, Thomas. Ottawa was there, and it was primarily because of what Weber had was kind of like one of those multi-day hosting events.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they would call it a tournament per se because Thomas was down there on Tuesday and Wednesday of that week. Or correction, they were down for a weekend, but then after Saturday, I think there was a Wednesday matchup, and Ottawa was going to play Thomas and Weber as kind of like their double jamboree games. So Thomas had one game, and then Weber followed up after that, and that's where Ottawa got 2 games, if I remember correctly. So with St. Thomas, to my recollection anyways, the only time we saw these two teams meet, or at least the last time we saw these two teams meet, was the NAIA tournament where they played them, I believe, in preliminary play.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about Ottawa before, all the tools coming back, and St. Thomas with the speed up and down the roster. It's going to be a good matchup, no matter what the ending score is, one way or the other. You know, these Sun squads are, man, you don't want to put too much on film against Ottawa. You know, you want to keep something in your back pocket, but as our friend Herm Edwards said, you play to win the game. Hello?
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, it's, that's where, again, you have to come in guns a-blazing and just playing the best you can. You can't really think about the strategy standpoint. And again, like we talked about a couple weeks beforehand, if you're Ottawa, this is exactly what you wanted in the first place. Was a way to play Sun Conference teams. Again, you look at last season, you really didn't see all that much because, allegedly for whatever reason, the coaches were trying to look to see how Ottawa played, and they didn't want to really give them an opportunity to give Ottawa a chance to bounce back if there was a loss on their end, to play that adversity card heading into the NAIA flag football finals. So in this particular case, because again, it's Reinhardt and they're still relatively new to the whole flag football scheme of things, this will be Ottawa's buy-in to play up against Sun Conference opponents, which again was a big proponent for Liz Sowers and what she wanted for this Braves club. So, all in all, it's a win-win situation. And again, how better do you want it to be? I mean, you're playing the best team right now in flag football, and you get a shot at them in the regular season to use it as a test or a benchmark of testing. It doesn't matter if you're a top team in the Sun Conference. It doesn't matter if you're at the bottom tier of things. You get an opportunity, again, like we're talking about, the whole scope of things, the whole enchilada, as they say. You got the best, and you got teams that are trying to build to be the best. And again, looking forward to seeing this tournament this weekend.
So you get 1 versus 6 on Friday, and then on Saturday at 10:45, wake up, you're in your jammies still. Ottawa versus Kaiser, a rematch of the inaugural flag football championship game. You get 1 versus 2 here early, and then at 2:15 you get Ottawa versus Thomas, 1 versus 4. Do you think one of these 3 Sun Conference squads can find a way against Ottawa, or will the Braves cement their spot atop the top 6?
Well, honestly, Corey, I mean, like we said, even in the beginning, this is Ottawa's season to lose. And we have seen the Braves have a midseason slump every now and then. It is possible. Personally, from how I'm looking at this right now, after seeing how St. Thomas has played and Thomas and Kaiser, if there's going to be a team, I think, between the 3 that has the best shot at potentially giving Ottawa a loss, it'll be Kaiser's offense. Their offense is going to be the make or break situation. I don't know from Thomas's end if we are going to see that type of replay or type of bounce back. Again, they're going to have their own games they're going to be playing. It's ultimately going to depend to see how well they play on that Friday heading into Saturday to see what kind of vibe they're going to get. If things are well and you've got Alexa Wilson, who's going to be on fire, if you got Kiana Cole, that'll take care of business on the offensive side and the receivers, and then defensively they shut things down with Sanaya Glover and Janae Scott, you got a shot against the Braves. But from an overall offensive and defensive standpoint, I think with Kaiser, they're going to have the best shot at things because, again, they have been playing NAIA opponents. They have been consistent. And compared to the other teams, Thomas and St. Thomas, again, last time Thomas played was last month. And that was Gateway. And Gateway will provide you something. But, again, it's, you still have a week and a half to prepare. And depending on how teams recover, sometimes it's better to keep playing games consistently. And other times, you might benefit from having a week and a half preparation heading into this Reinhardt tournament. So all in all, I think Kaiser between the 3 will probably have the best shot on paper. But again, in terms of tournaments, I mean, again, bringing them up a couple of years ago when Ottawa was down, they were actually stunned because they lost both games to Thomas and Weber when it was played in Babson Park. So, to recap that point, Kaiser will have the best shot. We could see Ottawa beat all 3 teams, or we might see Ottawa pick up a pair of losses during their time of Reinhardt. It all depends on how they play and how focused they are. But again, with the Sauer sisters, this is just another Georgia business trip for them and an opportunity for them to see if they can still maintain that top spot in the NAIA flag football kingdom.
I will say this, Thomas, more than maybe any other team that I've seen, runs so heavily on what the kids call vibes. Back in our day, we call it momentum. This Thomas team runs on vibes. If they beat the living daylights out of life, you might see them have enough what for to beat Ottawa. If they struggle against life, you're going to see a Thomas team who may not be ready to give Ottawa its best shot. The team is, for lack of a better term, a little streaky in its play.
Yeah, and just, again, to recap off that point, I mean, you look at even their doubleheader trip day between Weber on Friday and then turning around and playing Warner on Saturday. They played lights out against Weber, started the season off strong, but they struggled against Warner. They really couldn't get the ball moving on offense. And it was, at first, we all looked at it as the shot heard around the world, the stunning win that Warner had that shocked the entire NAIA realm. But seeing how the Royals have played this season, we look back on that, and while it may have been an upset then, was it truly an upset, or did we really start to see the birth of Warner's team really finally hitting its stride? So to that point, I think it ultimately depends. If Thomas is able to play consistently throughout the weekend and not have any hiccups in between, then to that point, they give themselves a better opportunity to win all 3 games in Waleska this weekend.
Absolutely. And who never has an off game are our patrons. They are there day in, day out, making sure that we are taken care of. If you want to support what we do to cover flag, this is the best way to do it. Become a patron at patreon.com/NAIAFBall. And our patrons are DSU Cone, Bob Boone, Roger Meyer, Jeremy Vauble, Shirley LaBella, Fred Christensen, Jerry Quickle, Ace Wellen, Brett, Marty Siebold, Nick Ryan, Hayden Ferrigno, Kyle Gregory, Tyler Pierce, Justin Hoffman, Steve Speakman, Brian Shake, Julianne Shager, Nate Soapbeer, Stephen Cutler, Julie Lout, Tim Burrow, Dale Norton, Nathan Moore, Dylan Gonzalez, Ryan, Jason Crawford, Zach Ryher, Dustin Wilkie, Charles Flowers, Todd Nick, Sean Chamberlain, Debbie, Zach, Lance, and Josue Trujillo. Thank y'all so much for what you do. It is absolutely and 100% appreciated, and we thank you for it. And that's going to about wrap it up for us on this week's NAIAF Ball live show, Flag Edition. Keep it locked here as we're going to be looking at, especially Friday and Saturday, at those games at the Reinhardt Invitational. Going to be an absolutely fun time. Until then, well, for Angelo Pontello, I'm Corey Thorpe, and we'll see y'all next week.